Yeah.
What's going on, TIW Mafia? JP here with Big Joe.
Hello.
No Tin this week, though.
No, poor baby get diarrhea.
But we do have with us a guy I've been friends with for a couple of years. And you've seen his face if you've watched the UFC. He's a world-renowned boxing coach for the MMA. He's a great baseball coach as well. And that's Mr. Steve Mays. Steve, how are you?
Good, man. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Oh, anytime, man. It's one of those things where, like, when we do this with QATV now in the studio, like, we've been trying to get more Quincy residents involved and the community involved and stuff. And I mean, you've lived in Quincy your whole life. You coached the baseball here with Morissette in the Legion.
Yep.
And, you know, like we were just talking about how competitive that league is. I don't think people realize that's not like Babe Ruth.
No, it's a great league, and it's you got to be anywhere from a high school freshman to a college freshman, and it is very competitive.
And I just got to check to play. Does your last name actually have to be Parker?
No, that's not true. It might have to be Italian, but it doesn't have to be Parker.
The Parkers are great kids. But that's yeah. So I mean, Steve, how did you become such a you coach everything at high levels? It's not like you know.
I mean, I was obviously blessed with great coaches growing up, at every sport, right? At baseball, basketball, football. Obviously, a little short for basketball, so we kind of put that on the back burner. But I had great coaches growing up, and it started with my dad when I played baseball. Guys like Scott Campbell, who's another Quincy resident, helped me out with football. I'm all about giving back, so let's help the kids out. I was helped out as a kid, so let's help the kids out and do the right thing.
Right now. So Steve Mays, like your name, we've heard you in the UFC. Like Joe Rogan's literally called you out a few times, and how did that happen? I think because I know the story. Like, truth be told.
So the UFC thing was crazy. So Joe Lozon, who lives in Bridgewater, he was getting ready for an 8-man tournament back in 2005, and he had a broken hand at the time. And I was at Bishop's gym, Eddie Bishop, in East Bridgewater. Yeah. So Joe Pomfret, who was the owner of Reality Self-Defense at the time, called Eddie Bishop and said, "Hey, I got a guy fighting. I need someone to wrap his hand." So Eddie Bishop said, "Hey, I think I got a very good guy to do it. See if you can help him out." So I said, "Yeah, sure." I had no desire to do it. I was a boxing guy, didn't know anything about MMA. So I wrapped Joe's hands. He asked me what it would cost. I gave him a ridiculous price. He didn't even blink at it. Nice. Wish I priced it a little more.
Well, my bottom level is...
Yeah, that's where I'll start. So he ended up winning the 8-man tournament. And so I literally cut his hand wraps off at the ring. I wanted out of there. I wanted nothing to do with it. I just wasn't educated in the sport. So a couple months goes by, not even a couple months, a couple weeks goes by, and Joe calls me and says, "Hey, I got an opportunity to fight in the UFC." Okay, that's, at the time, it didn't mean anything to me. And he said, "I'm fighting Jens Pulver." Again, doesn't mean anything to me. Yeah, sure. He said, "What would it take?" So, again, I gave him a ridiculous price, and he didn't even blink at it. And I'm like, oh, boy.
Was it this one more than the last one?
Yeah, because this was flying to California. This was pay-per-view. So I'm gonna jack the price, and he said, "Sure." And
I wouldn't even know where to begin.
That Pulver fight for him, that's kind of a funny fight too, because so Joe Lozon did the Ultimate Fighter later on, and Jens Pulver was his coach in that, and he had already had a victory over him.
So they brought Joe in to get knocked out by Jens Pulver because Jens was doing the show at BJ Penn, and that was already set. But Jens had taken a few years off from MMA to do boxing, and he was like 5-0, 5 knockouts in boxing. So they were bringing him back to be the coach of the show against BJ Penn, and then him and BJ were going to fight in the end, and Joe was just kind of he was coming in to do a job. So he says to me, "You want to do it?" So I give him a price. So now I'm like, I got to find some tape on Jens Pulver, because I don't know anything about Jens Pulver. So I called somebody who was very knowledgeable in the sport. I called Chopper. Chopper Dillon, Brian. Vote for Brian Dillon. I mean,
Chopper's the jack of all trades.
Oh, yeah.
There's something to be known about. I've known Chopper since we were kids.
Yeah.
If there's he may not know a lot of information about it, but he'll know something about everything.
But he is the boxing guy.
Oh, yeah. It's not, but with Chopper, it's not that like, oh, I know this. No, not one of those people. I know about that.
Yeah.
He knows it.
Yeah, he does. So he says, "Oh, that's an easy one." And I said, "What do you mean it's an easy one?" And he said, "Just go to Blockbuster." I'm like, "Go to Blockbuster? What do you mean?" He's like, "He's on all of the Ultimate Knockouts."
This is how far back the
2005. So he says he's on all of the Ultimate Knockouts, and I'm like, "What?" So I'm the boxing coach. We're fighting a guy who's a knockout artist against Joe, who will admit to you today that he's not a stand-up guy. He's not a boxing guy.
Right.
So I go and I get one of the Ultimate Knockouts, and now I found out he's left-handed. So he's lefty. He's a puncher. He's the former, at the time, he was the 155-pound champ. Right. He left with the belt, so nobody ever beat him. So I thought I was walking Joe into a nightmare of a night.
Remembering back to my boxing days, granted, I stopped when I was like 16, but I did it from like...
He started when he was 17.
I started when I was like 12 with my cousin who boxed, so going through. Left-handed, like they don't train that. They never trained me against the southpaw.
Right.
They always trained against the right hand, and it just throws you off.
Yeah. So you're 100% right. So what we worked on for that fight is we worked on one counter punch and defense. Don't get knocked out. He boxed with, at the time, Billy Cosgrove, who was 14 years old at the time, and Cheryl Houlihan, who was a international champion, but just crazy fast, crazy athlete, great boxer. And he boxed with both of them, and literally worked on not getting knocked out in one punch.
That's like the first thing you should do. Is like go into the ring, don't get knocked out.
Right, that's plan A.
Don't let your shorts fall down.
So we went, and 43 seconds later, my life, obviously Joe's life, but my life changed forever.
Right.
You know, he went in and he knocked Jens Pulver out.
He knocked out the knockout.
He knocked out Jens Pulver.
So you're basically celebrating a decade as a UFC coach.
Yeah. So and it all starts with Joe, right? It's whether I'm a good coach, a bad coach, or whatever coach, Joe made me a household name, right? If he doesn't win those fights, people have no idea who I am. And I'm not saying people know who I am now, but Joe is the reason. Because then...
It's funny, like you being the Boston guy, too, is like your voice is the voice you hear yelling from the crowd. Yeah. There's three other coaches there with you, but you hear your voice.
Yeah.
Oh, how many times do you hear... I'll admit, not that I'm not a fan. I never watched a full UFC fight.
I love it.
Full MMA fight. I love it. I like watching the highlights. I like watching but I've just never. Timing's never coordinated for me to watch.
That's how I was too. And then you just have something that hooks you.
Mm-hmm.
I obviously was a part of it, but you just have something that hooks you, and then.
And what's drawing me in more is through JB he has more connections into it than I do.
Yeah.
And just trying to get more and more acclimated with it and understanding of the sport. Now, I understand the art of fight. I grew up in the streets of South, you know how to fight.
Yep.
But that's different. It's like that is the art of fighting.
Yes.
And that's something I've never grasped.
I mean, that was UFC 1, UFC 2, like street fighting was actually labeled as one of the styles.
Yeah.
But if you went in with that now, you get destroyed.
Yeah, you'd be in a lot of trouble, you know.
It's a science at this point.
And there's a lot to it, right? There's kicks, there's elbows, there's knees, there's takedowns, there's jiu-jitsu, there's wrestling, there's judo, right? I mean, there's people with world-class judo that are great fighters. So
and that's the thing. Like, there are people out there that you used to study karate, or they study them all.
Yes.
They're like a black belt in like 16 different things.
Correct.
You know, the way I met you was obviously like mutual friends with Pat Dillon, but even before that was through Joey Cav with the WCF, where I'd be stuck in situations where you'd be grabbing me and be like, you have to stand here because the Celtics are out after curfew and nobody can take pictures of them. You do not move.
Yeah, I remember that.
I'm going to use the Celtics as an example. That never happened.
Yeah, that might have happened. Just not sure.
Yeah, exactly.
In Wilmington at the Shriners.
They may not have lost the game last night.
Correct.
Same with Frozen.
It'll come back. It'll come back. That's just the video. Yeah, that's so but like through there, and like when Pat was like, hey, my buddy Steve wants to watch the Royal Rumble, is he going to come over? And he said it was you. I was like, me and you didn't know each other. We hadn't really interacted at that point, but I knew who you were because you were the guy for Joe. I was the guy that was ringside doing security. You were the guy running the fighters down because you could control the crowd and you knew how to do it.
Yeah. Well,
do it at the right pace.
I saw the great Burt Watson do it for many, many, many years in the UFC, and I just kind of followed what he did, and I took that to now CES out of Rhode Island, Classic Entertainment Sports, Jimmy Birchfield's organization. So, I helped those guys out with it too. But I watched Burt for years do it with the best fighters in the world, and it made it easy.
I think my buddy Caleb just signed on doing their video.
Okay.
With CES. I know. No, you know what it was? Cage Sites. He just signed on with. But he's trying to get himself out. Like he's coming out of the pro wrestling world, doing video production stuff on a high-end live production, and trying to get away from that and into MMA because it's just a better sport.
Well,
it's a better sport.
It's where it's going right now.
The people in it are better people. I'm saying there's bad people in pro wrestling, but there's better businessmen in MMA, I'd say, and they have to be because of the.
Well, MMA, the business side of it, from someone on the outside look at it, that's the same thing as you go to certain bars and pubs and you go back down like in South, you have the double basement. They'd be down the double basement and it'd be bare knuckle brawling.
Right.
And it would be money to money. And that's how in my opinion, where I see UFC and cage fighting.
Well, that's it's sort of. I mean, bare knuckle was different, but that's sort of like it sort of got evaporated. Boxing is getting evaporated by MMA, I think, and I don't know. You as a boxing guy, I don't know if you agree or disagree with that, but
I love boxing. I'll always be a boxing guy, but MMA is what everybody's doing right now. It's where it's faster. It's we live in a world of speed, right? You want something, you look it up.
Yep.
You order it now, you have it tomorrow, right? You want a certain thing, you can get it right now. I can go to Google, Amazon right now and order something. JP might bring it with FedEx. I might bring it with UPS. Someone's going to bring it to you.
That's how I got my Guinness Zero delivered. And UPS brought it the next day.
And if you
what's Brown done for you?
if you have if you have a 10-12 round fight and it's a boring fight, after the 4th or 5th round, if you don't know the person fighting, you're shutting it off. And it never gets with that with MMA because you got 3 5s.
Right.
And it's over.
Do you think right now boxing is in chaos?
I think there are superstars, Canelo Alvarez, Lomachenko,
Logan Paul.
I'll get to Logan Paul, Tyson Fury.
Yeah.
So you have superstars, right? You have guys that events are built around. I mean, he's fighting in Wembley Stadium. He's going to sell Wembley Stadium out. It's unheard of, right?
Crazy.
That's like Ali Frazier stuff when they sold out Manila. And then, you have guys that are jockeying for that next spot. The 2 most feared guys in boxing live in New England. Bruno Andrade, who's out of Rhode Island, and Rashidi Ellis, who's out of Somerville, Mass. They're probably the most 2 feared guys in boxing.
What fight class?
Bubu is 60. He could be 68, and the same thing with Rashidi. He's like a 54-60.
And that's 2 areas that are pretty rich in boxing history, too.
Oh, Somerville, big time.
Yeah.
But you have guys like that. So my point is, you have guys like that can't get fights, right? Those big superstars don't want to fight them because it's too much of a risk. Canelo Alvarez is going to make $25 million whether he fights me or he fights Triple G. So why take the risk and fight a Demetrius Andrade or fight Rashidi Ellis?
Right.
In MMA, it's different. What Dana's done with the UFC is completely different. He's taking the 2 best guys and he's putting them in against each other. So everybody wants to watch that.
Yeah.
Right? Mayweather-Pacquiao was 10 years too late. Right?
Yeah.
If it was 10 years earlier, and think of the money they did then.
And that was because of what you were just saying. Those 2 were saying, why am I... Both of them.
Yeah.
He's on steroids. He's doing this. Both of them for years ducked each other because of what you were just saying. Why take the risk?
Correct.
Because they didn't need to make those big money fights.
And they still made the money.
Yeah.
I mean, look at. So Conor McGregor fights Floyd Mayweather, and they both made. They do world tours with hundreds of thousands of people.
That was the best hype stuff I've seen. Like
Conor McGregor had no boxing fights going into that.
No.
But no matter what, He was making $100 million in Conor, and Floyd was making $200 million.
Yeah, but he spent it all on his suits with the FU pinstripes.
Yeah, pinstripes. But you don't.
That was a cool suit, though.
Oh yeah.
You know?
Yeah. But you don't have to get the best boxer to fight the best boxer.
Mm-hmm.
You pulled somebody out of the MMA sport because they were so popular to fight, arguably the greatest boxer of my time.
And that's like with McGregor. My opinion of him is he is a bigger celebrity than he is a fighter.
Oh, for sure.
You know what I'm saying?
For sure.
He's doing commercials. He's got his own whiskey out.
Yeah.
Proper
He's
12.
making more money coming from his endorsements or his different things than any time you've ever gotten the ring.
He was in the parade. He almost got killed in the parade a couple years ago.
Really?
Yeah.
I know he was in the parade.
Proper put him in.
Yeah.
And he got out and he was talking trash.
Really?
They had to put him in the car and escort him out of the parade.
What was he talking trash to?
Anybody who would listen.
Anybody, that's how he is.
Anyone who would
You
listen.
got to realize, though, things like that, you don't know where you're going.
Right.
He does that up. He does it up on this side of Broadway. He's going to get bottled. He does it down this side of Broadway. He's getting
We're talking about the Southie parade, the South Boston St. Patrick's Day parade, of course. And you don't know who's there because that's not all Southie people.
That's right.
You know?
That's right.
You don't know who's there. That's why you need...
Pat Dillon will be the mayor of that parade.
Yes.
Yeah, correct? So make sure I keep throwing those plugs.
He's is he on payroll?
So Jake Paul, that's a real... So Logan Paul obviously made an appearance last night on Raw. But so...
I didn't even know that.
Yeah. So Jake Paul is making money.
Yeah.
And you can say whatever you want about him, right? But he's fighting the right guys, and he's making money. His pay-per-views kind of tanking.
Yeah, but
they're not selling a lot.
Right.
But he gets so many views from YouTube and so much money from YouTube.
Do you think, because I kind of see this happening, you know Dana. I don't know Dana. I've never met Dana.
Same here.
I don't know him from a whole... Like, I know who he is, obviously, but he doesn't know me from a home. Do you think... he's going to make Dana pull Jimmy Gifford out and train him and have Jake Paul versus Dana White?
No. Dana White doesn't need Jake Paul. Jake Paul needs Dana White.
With all the trash, with Jake accusing him of doing coke. And
but he said you can test me anytime you want.
Let me stop for a second. I need to fill in. Jake challenged Dana?
So, no, Jake is just basically... Jake is saying...
So Jake Paul's pay-per-views are tanking.
Yeah.
They're selling 60,000 buys when if you don't hit 100,000 buys, you're not going to break even. Yeah. So they're half of that. So the machine called the UFC, who just sells and sells and sells, Jake Paul fought a couple of their fighters and knocked them out, which he's a boxer knocking out MMA guys, which is fine. If that's what your business plan is, go right ahead.
It's like seeing beating an ice cream man and having a feed into a diabetic.
I was surprised.
It's like asking a basketball player to hit a baseball, right? It's not going to happen. But he needs those buys. So now he goes after Dana, who you could argue might be the biggest sports icon outside of like a Jerry Jones or something like that. You know what I mean? Yeah. So now he goes after him because he needs all those buys. So if he can goat Dana into a back and forth, Jake Paul might sell 100 pay-per-views on his neck buy.
Jake Paul is good at talking trash.
Oh yeah, he's great.
And he did it because he got Dana to answer.
Oh yeah,
you know?
for sure.
And Dana's got that in him too, where he's not going to let somebody run on him.
No way.
Well, and that's
no way. And he knows that.
I remember just the Tito Ortiz stuff with Dana White when Tito left him hanging. Yeah. And that's why I said it like that, because like that, I see that kind of like I think that may be Jake Paul's end game.
So one of the things one of the reasons that's not going to happen is that Tito Ortiz Dana White thing was 20 years ago.
Yes.
He's not 35 years old anymore.
Oh, but he's big.
Oh, he's in shape, but he's I don't know. It's when you he's 51 now.
That's
Jake Paul's
basically a teenager.
He's his prime.
51 and not constantly doing it.
Correct.
Correct. If you're 51 and you've been doing it week in, week out for the last 20 years, you can do it.
Yeah. No, I mean, he works out every day, and he works out hard every day, but it's just different. You know what I mean? It's just different. And he needs Dana, and Dana don't need Jake Paul.
Right, and Jake Paul, I mean, if you watch what Jake Paul did, Jake Paul beat, like, Ben Askren.
Yep.
Ben Askren's a tough UFC fighter. But has he thrown a punch in his career?
Never.
You know?
Never.
I was surprised. The first fight I bet on Woodley. The first Woodley fight.
Yeah.
And obviously I lost. I didn't see that happen. I thought Woodley was going to be able to be. I thought Woodley was going to be the one, honestly.
Yeah.
And then the second one, I knew Woodley wasn't going to be the one, but I thought it was going to go the distance, and I lost again.
So again, Jake Paul wants like Masvidal. He wants Diaz,
but
because they sell.
He's good.
They sell.
He's good to those guys. I think what he's trying to do too is, this is where I think this is where he got Dana mad the most, is saying, why don't you pay you guys like I'm paying them?
So that is all. That's everybody's thing, right? So first of all, so to go back to the boxing thing, Jake Paul, the first time he fought Woodley, probably even the second time he fought Woodley, he gave everybody on the undercard a minimum of like $20,000.
Right.
So everybody who fought on the undercard at a minimum got 20. Like Amanda Serrano got like 200,000.
Crazy.
They trained together, and now she's fighting Katie Taylor in arguably the biggest women's boxing fight there is. But so that's, people gravitate to Jake Paul because they're like, ooh, I'm going to get an extra 10,000, 20,000, 40,000.
For the money grab.
Yeah, that's why I'm going to do that.
It's this instead of
right. And go ahead.
It's like I don't know. Like I like what he's doing because it's bringing boxing back.
Oh yeah.
But at the same point, like I don't know.
And as far as paying your guys, Dana's his whole thing, and he's right. If you don't like what I'm doing, just start a company and do it.
Right.
Like if you don't like how Pat Dillon runs his wrestling shows,
or his oil race,
run your own. Run from there yourself. Run a wrestling show yourself. If you don't like what a guy's doing and you think you can change it, change it.
Go ahead. Yeah, that's very true. And Dana, so I don't know what he pays his guys. I don't know. We all see what the payouts are, but you also see all the bonuses. Oh, yeah. And there's not one or two bonuses. There's 4 or 5 bonuses a night. You get knockout of the night, fight of the night. Mm-hmm. So get the bonuses.
And not only that, more times than not, he pays extra bonuses. Right. So there's supposed to be 2 performance of the night. He might give out 4 performance of the night.
And
you know what I mean? Yeah. And discretionary bonuses. So I can tell you for a fact that there are fighters that get discretionary bonuses. So you could be sitting at your house today and you open up the mail and there's a check from the UFC for $10,000.
I was just going to say,
I think it happens all the time.
The first Garden fight, I think it was, Joe, who was a mid-carder, was the highest paid person on that card.
For sure.
And nobody knew that. And I think it made one of the newspapers locally.
Yeah, for sure.
Because he was the local kid. So he did. There was a reason it happened.
Yep.
And he earned that.
Yep.
Earned it. Basically,
And correct me if I'm wrong with this. Is there a difference between a payday and a contract? Like you're going to get X amount of money for this fight, but you're under contract for me for 4 fights, so you're going to get X amount each fight, and they may go up depending on how they go.
Correct. So most contracts go, and we'll just use dollar amounts. Your first fight's going to be $1. Your next fight's going to be $4. Your third fight's going to be $10.
Yeah.
No matter what, that's what you're going to make. And in MMA, they double it. So you're going to make $1 to fight, and you're going to make $1 more if you win.
Oh, so it's
So you're going to get $1, but you're going to fight extra hard.
Now we use $5 if you do this.
Correct.
On the Paul side of it, it's just like this amount of money for whatever you do.
That's right. That is correct. And it makes fights like that go the other way.
But sometimes you might have to get a tattoo, or you might have to change your name.
I love Jake Paul or whatever.
You got to get a tattoo on his finger. Right on his middle finger every time he has to show it.
Exactly.
And that'll wear off.
Yeah.
The finger tats will wear off.
He knew what he was doing.
Yeah.
Again, it was a money grab, and that's fine. Right? I don't have a problem with that. If guy is offering somebody $500,000 to take a fight, you got to take the fight.
Take the fight.
Whether it lasts 1 round or 12 rounds, you're going to take that fight.
And there with 10, you get punched in the mouth.
Right.
And then take that $500,000.
And I'll count to 500,000 before you count to 10, right? That's how it works. Yeah, of course.
Yep.
Now, how do you feel about the way because I think most of those are exhibitions too, right?
So the first Jake Paul fight against he fought a YouTuber. That was his first fight. Was another YouTuber.
Yes.
And I believe that was an exhibition.
Okay.
Everything else has been a real fight.
Okay.
The right amount of ounce blood. Correct. Now Mayweather is fighting exhibition. So Mayweather fought Logan Paul.
Okay.
That's 12-ounce gloves. You know, there's no knockouts, there's no decisions, anything like that.
In your
It's just a spectacle of it.
That is correct.
boxing expertise, who won that fight? Because Logan Paul claims he won that fight.
The Mayweather fight?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that was.
I didn't see it.
You
I
really?
did not watch it.
Really?
So it was on like a Monday night or a Sunday
You saw
night.
the fight and you didn't watch?
I work at night. It was a Sunday night. It was pouring, raining out at the venue.
Yeah.
You know, it was Logan Paul. I knew it was an exhibition, so I knew Mayweather couldn't stop him. Like,
Yeah.
if you go back and so I've watched it on replay. Mayweather catches him in like the first or second round
Yeah.
and holds him up and makes sure he goes the distance.
Yeah.
Right? So, you know, you're going to charge me $75 for that? I don't know
It's
about
like the
that.
Tyson McNeely fight.
Correct.
You know.
Correct.
Now, you'll get a kick out of this. Next year, me and Joe get a table at a pro wrestling convention in Rhode Island. It's the New England Fan Fest in Hall of Fame.
Yep.
And last year we brought in a couple of guys from Chicago to sit at our table. This year I said, "Now we're going to do something different."
Okay.
We have sitting at our table next year for the whole day, Hurricane Peter McNeely.
No way. Did he just wrestle? He did a running on Pat's show,
So
right?
that's why we grabbed him, because I know he's trying to get into wrestling.
Right.
And he's a name. He's got a name to him. So I knew everyone was going to try to grab him. So we locked him down already.
Oh, that's awesome.
We'll get some gloves to have autographed.
That's awesome.
yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah, he did Pat's last show in Southie, and one of the wrestlers all night was calling him the Tropical Storm. Until Peter had to get in and throw a little punch.
Yeah.
And, you know.
Yeah. That's
I
funny.
think McNeely will be in Malden on Friday too for Pat's February
Oh, really?
vacation. If you guys look at UFO Wrestling's Facebook, you can see all the information. I don't know if Peter's on the poster or not, but I'm pretty sure I've heard a rumor
He may not be there. He'll be around.
that Peter might be in the building for that one.
The question that I always pose for a UFO wrestling card: will the CIA make an appearance?
I
That's
don't.
always
so.
my question.
Yesterday was Pat's birthday.
I saw that. He was at the Column.
He was
at the Column.
I don't know if CIA will be there. CIA hasn't been around in a little while.
That's what I heard. But CIA has been working out. He doesn't look like he used to.
He's lost a lot of weight. He's lost a lot of weight.
Oh, yeah.
It's like he's actually coming from the castle instead of Sully's now.
It's coming from the BAC and not Sully's.
He's got a lot of stuff. There's a lot on hand for that, so he's got a good show lined up.
Now, MMA question for you, and
Yes.
it's outside the ring. This is something I always wondered. Weigh-ins.
Yep.
Face-offs.
Yep.
How much reality is in that? I understand you weigh yourself, that's all good. You do your pose, you get your publicity photos. But the face-to-face, and you see this shit coming back.
So it used to be, back in the day, it used to be, you'd get there at 4 o'clock, you would weigh in, and then you would have a face-off. And those were, there was some pushing and shoving and stuff like that, but guys have spent hours and hours and hours in the sauna. So after they did this, they were like, get me some water.
I've literally seen some of shows where the guy hadn't dropped enough.
Yeah.
Jog around the building once or twice in the sweatsuit.
Yeah.
Take go to the bathroom, and then come back and weigh in. So
now they do it different. Now they weigh in the morning. So you have it, and the UFC has started this, and it's unbelievable because now when you talk to people, they love it.
Yeah.
You have a time slot, so you have from 9 to 11. So you have that 2-hour gap to get up and go weigh in. It's not like a 9:05 or a 9 o'clock. You have 2 hours. So if you get up and you're a pound heavy and you got to cut that weight, that's fine. So when you weigh in, now you come back at 4 o'clock, but you're full of energy now.
Yeah.
So now you're going to get more of a back and forth, maybe a push and a shove and stuff like that. Whereas before it was kind of like, let's just get this over with. You're rehydrated, you've eaten probably twice, and you got a little bit of energy. I don't think any of it's made up. I think some of it's a little more ridiculous than others.
Yeah.
But I don't...
Motions and swings. And
I don't know if it sells one more ticket or one more pay-per-view buy. I don't know that answer.
I don't know. I think the people that are going to watch for that are going to watch it regardless.
Correct.
But they're going to they might watch online the weigh-ins because the Diaz brothers are there. And I'll just use them as an example because they're like notorious for fighting.
For sure. Yeah, for sure.
They go there and watch the I like the ones where they'll have they'll announce the fight. A month later, they'll have a press conference with the face-off. No, a face-off. So it kind of builds.
Yeah.
And then at the fight day, then all you guys get in there and start pushing
There's
around.
been some notorious stuff, like remember when CBS had the show? And I think it was Mayhem was in the ring, so guy had just won his fight. He just won his fight, and he was calling. Somebody called him out. So I forget who it was. Someone called out Mayhem Miller because he had the title. This was on CBS Live.
Yeah.
And Mayhem thought that was his cue to go in the ring, and no one else knew. They locked him in the ring, and they just pummeled him.
They went out.
It was like 4 or 5 on 1.
Yeah.
They cut the commercial. You could hear the announcers going, "Guys, this is live on TV. Don't do this here."
Right.
Like, that was crazy.
Yeah, that stuff happens, but the other thing you want to think about is, and again, this is to the great Burt Watson. He used to say that you don't get paid to fight at the weigh-in. Right. So let's just say me and you have a face-off, and I push you and you push me, and I fall. Yeah, the fight's off. You don't get paid. I don't get paid.
Yeah.
Right.
So you know what? Let's just face off and then fight tomorrow. Because then we're both going to get paid for that.
Right, and that's happened with the Shamrocks.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Remember, the Shamrocks were going to fight each other, and I think Ken got hurt.
That's why you see Dana step in a lot, because he doesn't want to lose that. So there's so much hype going into that fight. Yeah, there's so much fight going into that hype. You don't want to lose that fight because someone's being a jerk. Look what happened with Canelo and Caleb Plant. He slapped him at the press conference. He cut his eye. If that's at the weigh-in, there's no fight.
Yeah.
You lose all that money.
And probably might even get fines if you're going to...
Without a doubt.
Yeah.
Without a doubt.
And suspensions. Because I don't know if there's any state where MMA is not commissioned now, but I know Dana for a long time wouldn't go into a state that wasn't commissioned.
Yeah,
That's why it took so long for him to get here.
Correct.
When's he coming back?
Doesn't have to. That's the thing.
Knock on wood, cross your fingers, cross your toes, say a novena, do whatever you got to do. May 7th, please come back to Boston.
Yes.
I break out the rosary.
I'm not saying it's even being talked about. If there was ever a time, because the mask, so he won't go anywhere where there's a mask mandate.
Okay.
He's not going to force his fans to wear masks.
We just lifted it.
We just lifted it.
Well, we lifted the vaccine in
at
Boston.
The garden. Yeah, so you don't have to have a vaccine card, and I don't think you have to wear a mask at the garden.
Yeah, so I think only in like the common area, so like the concourse when you're going to get food. I just went to a concert. Granted, it wasn't in Boston; it was in Worcester, where they had the mask mandate still, and you only had to wear the mask in the concourse area, so the food area, and even then, no one was enforcing it. But I get it; like Dana wants to go by the rules.
So now that it's lifted, there's no site for May 7th. Please God, come to Boston on May 7th.
That would be cool.
I'll attend that one.
Yeah.
Yeah. The UFC, it's so like I've gone a couple of times with friends and my cousins and stuff because they're all. My cousin Roy's a huge boxing guy. We were trying to turn him for a while into the MMA and introduced him to like Charlie Flaherty and a couple of those guys. You know?
Yeah. I was just with Charlie a couple
Is he still around?
Oh yeah.
I hadn't seen Charlie in a while. I thought he went down to like Florida or something.
Oh, he's still around.
Good dude. Funny guy.
We did a ring together Friday for a boxing event in Warwick, Rhode Island.
Yeah, Charlie's a good dude.
He's a good guy. So real quick, Aaron Tyler says that I stopped Joe's fight in the second round in 2018. More coaches need to do that to avoid damage. And Aaron, you're 100% right. When I went up there in between that fight with Chris Gutzenmacher, was the guy he was fighting, and I just whispered in his ear and said, Joe, this isn't going the right way. Let's live the fight another day.
Aaron's a huge MMA guy.
Yeah, and usually when Joe fought Jim Miller for the first time, he had 30 stitches in his head. Oh. Yeah, 30. He come back after the first round, and he was covered. I could just see when he opened his eyes, I could see his eyeballs, and that was it. And I said, Joe, are you okay? And he said to me, this kid can't hurt me. Now, when I'm staring at him covered in blood.
But if the stitches that you do that, it's open.
But you know that he wants to continue fighting. Right. So when Gutzenmacher, when I just whispered in his ear, and I just said, Joe, this just isn't going the right way. Let's live the fight again. And he just said, okay. and you know right then and there
That
the fight cannot go any further.
Right.
Now,
You
what
know?
do you do? I didn't see that fight. What
I
do
just
you
turn to
do?
the referee and I say, that's it, it's over.
Okay.
And Dan Mergliato was the referee who I know very well, and I just turned and said, Dan,
Yeah.
that's it.
So that's the thing, and I don't know if people realize that. Like, you being in Joe's corner, you're not just in Joe's corner. You're in that circle.
So I was in his wedding. I've been
You know,
to
and-
birthday parties for his kids when his kid was born with cancer. I was there every day for him. He's more of a friend now than a fighter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. If he fights one more time or 100 more times, he's more my friend
It's the
than
friend
anything
instead
else.
of the guy.
Right.
Correct.
But
You know.
that's like when I was like you're in that whole circle though. You're not just like you said. You're not just a coworker with Joe at all.
Right.
But you're not just coworkers with any of them because
Correct.
guess what? When you guys are done with the fights, when the fights are over or before the fights begin, you're in the same hotel.
Oh yeah.
You know, so you're in the same bars.
Yeah.
You're in the same,
Oh, yeah.
maybe not the same bars, but the same gyms,
Yeah.
working out in the same places.
Yeah. Without a doubt.
You know,
Without a doubt. And that's, Joe creates that atmosphere at the gym at Lozon MMA. Whether so on Saturdays, there's big sparring there, and people come from all over to spar.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter what gym you're affiliated with. Joe opens, his open arms to whoever wants to come in.
Are you allowed to go and watch?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I remember.
Absolutely.
Can I tell a story that's kind of funny? And it has to do with me doing security at WCF.
Yeah.
So I don't know who they were fighting, and Joe's like the nicest guy in the world. But whoever one of his guys was fighting, and he was in the corner, you were in the corner, and me and you didn't know each other at the time. And there was heat between the gyms.
Okay.
And Joe Cav was a little worried about after the fight.
Yeah.
And he came to me and he said, JP, I need you ringside for this one. There's issues between the gyms. If anything happens, get in. And I'm thinking, Joe Lozon is going to kill me. Like, I'm not trying to go here. I'm like, the best thing I can do is grab Steve.
I don't remember.
It's been a while since Joe ran. And
I'm sure there was some beef somewhere.
Yeah, but I mean,
That's
Joe,
just the way it was.
Right. Lozon's the nicest guy in the world. Every
Best guy
time
in the
I've met
world.
him.
Best guy in the world.
You know, same with his brother.
Yeah,
And,
Danny's awesome too, and Danny just had a kid.
oh, nice.
Danny
Congratulations.
100% has changed his entire life around. He's a dad now, has a great job. But people, when they would say things about Danny, I would say, look at this for a second. You're a senior in high school. You get asked to fight on pay-per-view in the biggest organization in the world against a very good fighter, and you got a shot. Right? How do you think the kid's going to
I
react?
knew he was the youngest fighter.
18 years old, was a senior in high
I
school.
knew like he was the youngest ever. Probably still is.
So you were going to math
really
class
was
thinking
still in high
about
school.
fighting in.
You're sitting across from him at lunch and
Yeah.
on Friday, and Saturday he's on paper.
100%.
That's crazy.
100%. So, Danny's a great guy. I love Danny. But he battled himself,
Yeah.
but he turned it around.
Right.
Right, and that's the story that people should tell.
Yeah.
He's a dad now. He's got him and his girlfriend are doing great. He's got an unbelievable job. That's the story that people
The few
should
times
tell.
I've seen him has been at shows. He's always been very professional.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
he was around Joe. Joe Cav was like I don't know if Joe was like a handler for him or what, but
Joe Cav was his manager for a while.
So, he's of course best behavior around him,
Always.
but it's it's just
That
it's
also goes
fun.
back to being the persona. I heard so and so
Right.
did this. Well, I don't know so and so, so I can't judge him.
you know,
know?
it's and anybody can be in situations and get anything can happen. We can walk out of here and something can happen.
For
You know
sure.
what I mean?
For sure.
So. I don't, Joe. I'm throwing Joe in front of whoever. 'Cause
Well, that's fine.
he's a little more crippled than me.
I'm running out of there.
I'm already broken, so
Steve was like, "I'll stand behind you and yell what to do."
Hey,
That's what I did back in the day. Joe, go in. What?
Yeah. So what's next for you? What do you got coming up? Anything?
So I work for CES out of Rhode Island, Jim Birchfield's Classic Entertainment Sports,
Great-
and we
great
just
fights.
we just had a show this past weekend, Warwick, Rhode Island, at the Crown Plaza. I had the main event, Jamie Clampett, who she's 25-4 or something like that. She's 45 years old. She just went 6 rounds, shut the girl out, looked absolutely unbelievable. I had Andy Aiello in the corner with me. He's always great.
Is that boxing?
That was boxing, yeah. Andy's an MMA fighter, but Jamie's a boxer. She's a 4-time world champion. She beat Mia St. John. She's fought fought beat Jane Couch. She fought Holly Holm in Albuquerque. She's in the Boxing Hall of Fame, the Women's Boxing Hall of Fame.
That's awesome.
And at 45 years old, she said, I think I can still do it.
Oh, jeez.
So we tried.
47. I don't think I can do it.
She fought. The fights will be up on YouTube. CES will post them up on YouTube, one fight at a time. If you get a chance to put in Jamie Clampett and you see her fight from last night, it will be, you will be amazed. So then we have some March 4th. I have Connor Matthews fighting for CES again. That's live on Fight Pass, and it's from Twin River. And then, and I know what you're leading into, and then the big one, May 7th, Joe Lozon returns to the ring, returns to the cage.
So I just want to say, like, you just told me about this. I don't follow the UFC news. Like, I see when the fight's coming up. I look at the headlines.
Yeah.
And I'm pumped for this because this is a fight between two guys that I've been fans of for like 20 years.
Definitely watching that.
Yeah, so Joe gets back into the cage May 7th.
The toughest fight is pound for pound.
Yeah, and he fights Cowboy Cerrone.
Yeah, Cowboy takes a Cowboy for I think. Like, Cowboy was awesome. And he is awesome.
Unbelievable.
What he did to his career, this is where I think he went right, but also went wrong by doing it too much, was he took every fight thrown at him. 2 weeks notice, 2 weeks after a fight, 3 weeks after a fight, he's fighting again.
Dana would say that Cowboy would fight on a Saturday. Wherever the fight would be, he would stay there Sunday, and Monday he would be in Dana's office saying, I want to fight again.
I think that hurt him because it obviously affected his win-loss.
Oh, for sure.
You know,
for sure.
Where he was on a great road.
Cowboy coming out of WEC was unbelievable, and he fought everybody. You talk about a guy that fought everybody.
I think it was one of the Find a Fighters. They did or something like one of Dana's web series, and
it was Tap Out.
Okay. Yes, it was.
Whatever they called it, but it was the Tap Out series.
What happened to Tap Out?
The head guy passed away in a car accident, and then it just kind of. So I still talk to Scrape and those Scrape every now and then via text. He always wears the Eddie Bishop T-shirt.
He's not that tall.
He's not.
When they came into WCF, and I happened I got put in those positions from Joe.
Yeah.
Like, I need you here because Dana's in this section.
Yeah.
The mask guy, the Tap Out guys are coming through here. And me and being around pro wrestling, I understand certain things.
Yeah.
So Punk Ass came in first, and I said, do you want me to check your tickets, or do you want me to get away because he's not that fucking tall?
Right.
Part of my I just walked. And Punk Ass just started laughing. And I won't reveal anything, but
those guys are really guys.
Awesome, yeah.
They got a bad rap with Lozon's because Danny was on that show.
Yeah, I think
he was one of the original guys. Yeah. So I can't think of the name that Danny fought that night. Oh man, he knocked him out with a kick or something like that.
Yeah, it was stupendous.
Yeah, it was unbelievable. So
I think he looked at Dana and said, "How about that contract or something?" After that fight,
they brought Danny to sit your tongue, and obviously, so as you guys know, when you go with TV. They show you what they want to show you, right? They want the viewer to think whatever they want the viewer to think. And Mark Pellegrati and Andy Cote and those guys are friendly with the Lozon guys. We're all friendly. Danny went over there to train, not to change gyms. And the Tap Out show made you think
that he was
changing gyms. And that's not what it was. And
that's not the Tap Out guys. That's television production.
Correct. So I get along with all those guys really well. Mask was, God, I can't believe he's gone, but, Scrape and Punk Ass and they were all great guys. And the producers of the show were good people. They had to tell a story. Right. You can't fault them for trying to tell the story.
It was awesome. Because they have to, get you drawn into the television. They need that drama built in.
So once Mask passed away, they just kind of slowly went away.
I mean, the Tap Out brand is still around. But I think the WWE owns it now.
I think Cena wears it a lot or something like that.
Yeah, they all do.
Yeah.
And those guys were the one time I met them. They were cool.
Great guys. They really were. They were great guys.
It was funny that show because Dana was there. I think Dana being there sold more tickets to boxes around the area.
Without a doubt. So
and I bumped into kids I grew up with, like Kevin Bartel. He didn't recognize me. He was like, "Hey, I just want to say hi to my buddy Dana." I said, "How about you say hi to me first, Kevin?" And he looked up and went, "Oh man!"
So, March 17th. St. Patrick's Day.
Yes.
Calvin Cater's running Combat Zone. Calvin Cater's running a show at the Encore. It's the first show at the Encore.
Really?
Yeah. If I were you, I would be there that night.
Yeah, I might.
And that's all I can really say about
we'll be there.
that. But if I wanted to get a picture with maybe the president of the UFC, I probably would show up that night. But I don't know. I don't want to stand
But I mean, if you guys had a company you work for?
Nope, I just work for CES. I love Calvin. I've worked with Calvin in the past. Ralph Font, The Cartel, Jake Manini, Tyson Chardy. They're just great people.
Did you ever run across, he only fought a couple of fights, but the kid was super talented and raw pure strength was Jarrell Larnell. He fought in Plymouth, and then
I know the name for sure.
He switched over to I think there was the kickboxer, and he was fighting down at Foxwoods.
I know the name for sure. Does he train in Quincy?
Yes.
With Kenny Kwan, maybe?
Yes.
Yeah. I know Jarrell well.
I worked with Jarrell. Jarrell's a great, he's a kid who I'm going to have to reach out to him because I know I think he pulled out of it a little bit.
He's still around here, though, because Mike Rodriguez used to train with those guys, and now, he trains with us, and now he's on the North Shore.
Jarrell's got quite a story to tell. Like, his whole past, his history, and he's not a young cat.
No.
His first fight in Plymouth, like a bunch of us I worked at Home Depot at the time, and a bunch of us went down there to support him. And the one thing they tell you is, like, if you're being choked, don't pick the guy up. Like, go with it, roll. Like, you don't turn away from if you can't spin out. You don't spin out of it. You turn into it. And same idea. And I don't know why Jarrell didn't know that. But he picked this dude up while he's being choked, like in a guillotine, and slammed this dude down, like with just pure strength.
And it was in Plymouth?
It was pure raw strength, and it was like, if he can do that, and he survived, and I don't know if he won that or lost that, but I think he was going, like, he had a good streak going with the kickbox and stuff. Is it Lion something that runs?
Lion Fight.
Yeah.
They run down at Foxwood all the time.
He had a pretty good streak running with that.
They actually just ran at the Shriners.
Oh, really?
4 or 5 months ago.
Did you hear that, Joey? Someone else running at the Shriners?
He knows. He was there. He was there.
Was he?
Yeah, he went. That's kind of when he started getting back in the mix. So he went there. He met with Fight Pass people, and he met with the Shriners people. So he's going to go soon.
I know when I talked to him, he had mentioned Fight Pass and that stuff. So that's it's cool. It's just, but it's funny how small the circle is. Like, we talk pro wrestling a lot, and pro wrestling's a small.
Yep.
But I feel like the MMA community is even smaller. Like, I knew you were going to say, who Jarrell is, because he trains in Quincy, and I know you're not going to.
And Kenny Kwan is a great trainer, and he trained, like I said, he started Mike Rodriguez, who now trains with us.
I'm going to have
anybody who comes out of that gym, anybody who Kenny Kwan trains is the real deal.
You got to look at it too. Like, you see those diagrams where in the middle of it's fight, but there's a circle. It says fight. Circle here that says wrestling, and it's kind of in MMA, and there's all these different aspects, but they're all fight, and they all intermingle at one point or another. Brock Lesnar getting into MMA, Bobby Lashley getting into MMA. They all intermingle, and then you have on the other side when you got Ronda Rousey coming over to wrestling.
Ken Shamrock. I mean, that's been on for years. Ken Shamrock and the mustache.
Dan Severn?
Yes. He had Severn going down to the ring with the NWA belt on him, going down to the mixed match of the UFC ring.
Steve Blackman too.
Yep.
So someone asked me just recently, maybe 4 or 5 days ago, if you had a kid, which I do not. So if anybody thinks I said that, if you had a kid that was 7, 8, 9 years old, what would you do first? And I said wrestling. Wrestling is number one. High school wrestling.
You mean
wrestling.
more the Olympic style
without a doubt.
As opposed to WWF. Okay.
Correct. And then I would go to jiu-jitsu. I would put boxing in last only because you don't need a 10-year-old kid getting punched in the face every day. Right? That's not ideal.
So I have a little cousin. He's a huge kid. He's 6 and he's boxing now. But out of Quincy.
Okay.
Right down the street from Jarrell's place, but I don't know the name of the place. Okay. But this kid, he's big. He's like me already. Like size wise. And his father boxed for Jimmy in Quincy.
You know his name?
His father's name is John Walsh.
Yeah.
So
I know who you're talking about. He worked with Giff a little bit too.
Probably. Probably. John's a big guy.
I'm gonna look him up. because I think I know.
He boxed back in the day, and then his son was getting that size, and they wanted to teach him some discipline, so they got him into boxing.
Yep.
He loves it, but the problem is now you just taught him how to throw a punch.
Exactly.
But that's the same thing. Throwing a punch is this much. Receiving a punch is here. Blocking a punch, moving a punch. You know, people think about boxing.
Little John hasn't lost yet because he hasn't fought yet.
But that's the thing. People think, oh, boxing, you know how to throw a punch. It's such a small piece of it.
But you remember back in the day, all the Celtic kids that boxed, and it'd be like, oh, his hands are registered.
Yeah, that's completely irrelevant now. That doesn't even happen.
Well, even with that, like growing up in South,
none of my weapons are.
Exactly.
You know, if I had any.
Hypothetically.
Getting back to boxing, growing up in Southie, you had the Chopper Dillons, Mark Condis, Kevin Bartels, different people.
Yeah, the Shea Twins.
The Shea Twins fighting in boxing. But then you had that other conglomerate, like myself, that trained. I didn't fight.
Right.
I didn't go out to a spectacle fight. I went in the ring. I fought. Who that one kid that kicked my ass? He's probably about 10 years older than me. Fitzgerald from D Street.
Oh, I don't know.
He got his ear bit off in a fight.
And Kings.
Yeah.
I don't know who it was, but I know.
Is his first name Kevin? Kevin, I know who you're talking about.
Yeah.
He used to come to O'Malley's all the time. Yeah.
I remember when he was. How do you feel about the neighborhoods? Because like we obviously me and
crazy.
You grew up in Southie. You grew up in Quincy, I believe, right?
Born and raised. Yeah.
How did you feel about the neighborhoods? Because like Southie always had a big thing on St. Patrick's Day where all the Southie kids fought.
Yeah.
Usually there'd be a Southie Charlestown thing going on.
Yeah.
That's the thing with Southie.
Was it divided like that in boxing? For the neighborhood spots?
No. If you were in Quincy, you went to O'Malley's. You know,
Right.
you trained with Jimmy Farrell.
Yeah.
And that was it. And you know, it wasn't like and Southie kids would come over too, so they would train at
there was
L Street and McKinley's gym and stuff like that. But there was McDonough gym.
The Polish Prince.
Ryan Kozlowski.
Yeah, he was under Farrell for a while. I know his brother was.
Both of them are. Both of them are, for sure. Yeah.
You know.
It's Fitzgerald.
I didn't think it was
definitely a Fitzy.
I didn't think it was a Fitz. I thought it was a Kivlin.
It might be more than one.
I remember the one that got. I remember the year it happened at the Chinese restaurant.
Yeah.
Like I remember hearing about that.
Yeah.
No, but if you were in Quincy, you trained at Farrell's, and even if you weren't in Quincy, you trained at Farrell's.
Yeah.
You know, like the Ryan Kilzeskis of the world, the Morganellis of the world, guys like that. You know, they were trained in Quincy with Jimmy. Jimmy was the best. Still is the best.
Yeah, he's still in business, I think.
In your gym, like I remember guys coming and going. So I was in McDonough gym, then I think it was with Penders up his corner.
And you had the L. Like,
so I'd be in there just training and doing things like but then you see this guy come from nowhere, and it was like, oh, you're from the McDonough gym, but you have potential, so we're gonna bring you around.
Yeah.
And you're gonna see all these other people.
Absolutely.
People know people, so you're not gonna fight. You're just gonna train at different gyms.
Yep.
Even it was all connected. There was a spider web of it, and once one person stood out, everybody pushed behind.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
It was amazing to see that.
We were like that with Nick Morganelli. Even Michael too, but Nick Morganelli was the guy. When he was a kid, everybody pushed behind him.
We had the Shea Twins and Kevin Bartel, who were great, you know, and rest in peace. But you know, they were all great. All three of them were great fighters. And Jimmy LeBlanc. I mean,
Jimmy LeBlanc, yeah.
Jimmy LeBlanc. I love Jimmy.
Yep.
Probably the most wasted boxing talent in the world, though.
Jimmy is awesome, and he was a great boxer. And he could punch too, right? Like he had deceiving power. For 140 pounds, he was tall. He was skinny.
So when he was younger, he didn't just get punched.
No, he would punch people.
That's a different style of boxing. Another thing I saw coming up, I was always trained to wear them out. I can take it, wear them out.
Yeah.
Where you see Shea Brothers and Kevin were punch.
Yeah.
Hit him as fast as you
Jimmy
can.
spent a couple of years where Jimmy made money by losing at the end of his career. When he knew he was done.
But he
Jimmy could have still won.
He trained with the Mayweathers. He did train with the Mayweathers.
He was Team Mayweather.
Yeah.
And then
who'd he fight in the amateurs? He fought somebody in the amateurs. Oh,
yeah.
man,
He did a bunch of movies.
He fought a top guy in the amateurs. Fernando Vargas. He fought Fernando Vargas in the amateurs. Yeah.
Yeah, Jimmy was such a good talent.
Yeah.
And
I think we got to get Jimmy on.
yeah,
That would be awesome.
Jimmy would do the show.
Jimmy would do it for sure.
I mean, his family's local.
His crowning moment I shouldn't say his crowning moment. One of his crowning moments was when he fought Kevin Watts at the Roxy.
Yes.
What a great fight. That place was jam-packed. It was jam-packed.
But we used to, everybody went out for those. Like, me and Joe, didn't hang around together. He was sort of the older kids to me, because he's older than I am.
By a year.
You want to say it again?
But all the groups would get together, and we'd all sit together, and if you fought one of us, you fought all of us in the crowd. But it wasn't about that. It was about, getting together for a friend that was down in the ring and showing them
The dynamic in
support.
Salty was so much of an anomaly that people don't realize it to this day. Like, you had you'd have the point low end, you had all these different sections, but when Jimmy's fighting, we're all together.
Correct.
And like the kids from the point are going to fight the kids from D Street. But
That was when we got back to Salty.
If the kids from Quincy mess up the kids from O'Connell, we're all going together.
Correct.
But I remember fights down M Street Park and stuff like that, like boxing matches, not regular
Yeah, but
fights.
now you do that and someone's pulling a gun out.
It's a different day and time, obviously.
So let me pose this question. You guys are asking the question, so now I'm going to ask the question.
All right.
Who is the most famous and or respected fighter to come out of South Boston?
I have several different answers.
No, I know the answer, and I can't think of his name.
Okay.
The fastest knockout at the Boston Garden.
Connors.
Yes, Jimmy Connors.
Is it Jimmy
Tommy Connors.
Tommy Connors. Okay.
But there's different ways I look at that. Now, I can look at the time before me, the time after me. You know what I'm saying?
But when now, if someone said this guy, you'd be like,
the
wow.
first name that comes to my mind is Tommy Atato.
Okay.
That's the first name that comes to my mind.
100%.
That whole family was great.
Yeah.
That's the
And his brother just passed away, I believe.
Yeah.
Yes.
Anthony, Tony. I grew up. I lived across the street from them.
Yeah.
Butchie used to beg my mother to let me box.
Yeah.
Every day.
Yeah.
And my mother'd be like, "No, you're not going near him."
If she said yes, you'd fit in my car now.
Maybe.
But yeah, Butchie used to beg my mother because he saw my size.
Yeah.
I was a skinny kid. I wasn't a big kid, but I was tall.
You're lanky.
Yeah, so he knew I'd have reach in there.
And then look the whole Atato family.
Yeah.
If there was a fight,
Susan's as tough as Tommy.
Yeah.
and if there was a fight, they were in the fight.
Yeah.
But they were the nicest people.
Yeah.
You know, I haven't seen any of them in years, but they were the nicest people. I mean, the story with Tommy, we were sitting up the Tynan one night and we were just hanging out. No one else was around. It was a Wednesday night in the summer, nothing. So we walked to the liquor store. We bought 3 bottles of, I forget what it was. It was like that big wine, whatever. And we drank it, and we just went home.
Yeah.
And it was like one of those things. Like, I still remember it, but at the same time, you think if I messed up, he'd snap me.
Yeah.
But that's when I always saw Tommy fighting. Him and Peter Walsh had the big
Peter Walsh.
battles going back.
It could have been and you could argue Joey D too. You could argue Joey DeGrandis.
So I would say the name that I heard the most growing up was Joey DeGrandis. Now, Tommy Atato trained in Quincy.
That's like saying this gym or that gym.
Right.
But with Joey DeGrandis, so at that time when we were growing up, he was sparring with Pazienza.
Without a doubt.
And had the belt. Like he used to have a guy, I don't know who the guy was, that would walk around Salty with him carrying the belt.
I knew Joey since I was little. He's a year or two older than me. But since living in D.C. Projects, I knew him since I was a kid.
Right.
My barbershop has an autographed pair of Joey D gloves in there.
But the guy that, so Joey was obviously the most popular, but the person that, everybody talked about all the time was Peter Welch. And he has a tremendously successful gym now in South Boston. It's unbelievable.
The Ultimate Fighter too.
Oh,
he was one of the coaches.
He was one of the coaches. He trained Brock Lesnar. When Brock won the world title, he was his boxing coach. He would go to Minnesota for weeks on end.
I know when they're to bring someone into Boston, that's where they bring them. It used to be Cityodome with Mark, and it's probably still Mark to a point, but it's definitely Peter.
Peter's the guy, and again, he has an unbelievable gym. He's one of the nicest guys in the world.
And I would agree with that, but I was on the Tommy Atato side of the street.
Of course. Of course.
And it's sad to say, I'm not saying anything out of church, but it's sad to say when things happen to people and they fall out.
Yeah.
If he kept, it would have been great.
Yeah.
You know?
And I think, and I don't know this for sure, but I think Tommy and Peter have now, because they're older, have they're okay
That
with
was
it.
kid stuff.
Correct.
Yeah, and
Now it wasn't so much them as much as it was everybody behind.
Yeah.
them.
Correct.
You know,
Correct.
everybody behind.
there were a lot of other people that we won't even name. I know you got to get out of here in a minute or two. There was a lot of other people involved in that.
Oh, I'm sure.
You know,
I'm sure.
Well, those were the days when, all right, we're going to meet down Columbia Park. You bring one person, I'll
Yeah.
bring one person.
Yeah.
If they say stop, we stop.
Yeah.
but yeah, so that's what you think is you.
I would say, Joey was the name that I heard the most growing up as popular, but
I think Peter's
any-
definitely the gym.
Peter is the second name where
Yeah.
everyone would be like,
Yeah.
Peter Welch, and it shows now. He's an unbelievable gym.
He's still got, is it Frankie down there training?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Frankie's Frankie's my age, and
Yeah.
Frankie looks like he's in his 20s,
Yeah.
and god damn, in such good shape still.
I've drove by the gym a few times.
Yeah, I know a guy named
About
Jim.
any gym. Yeah, it's great. And like thinking about, Peter, I never had a problem with Peter. Never had a problem. I was one of those guys that really never had a problem with anybody.
Yeah.
But all right, I'm with this group, so let's go fight.
Right.
But
Yep.
Steve, I know you got to get out of here.
All right, let's wrap it up.
So thank you.
I appreciate it, man.
That's been a
That was awesome. Yeah.
We're an hour on the
It
dot.
goes by super quick.
Yeah, anytime, if you guys are looking for somebody to come on and no one's
Hey,
here,
see-
and I can talk wrestling too.
We're gonna be looking for people to come on.
We didn't even get into it.
I know, we didn't talk about wrestling at all.
So that we'll save that for another show. And so I'm just going to say, everybody in the Mafia, TIW Mafia, we'll see you next Tuesday.